Now they say that we can't explain the warming from 76 to 98 except through human action. Well, look back there from 1915 to 1940, and that warming was almost as strong and just about as long. And that was before humans were emitting much CO2. So their theory doesn't hold there. And then look at the year 1940 with that big spike in the sea surface temperatures there. Our modern industrialization started about 1945. And the first CO2 was supposed to be the most powerful. So the temperatures after 1940 should have soared. The theory says 1945 to 1970 should have seen a huge increase in the Earth's temperature. Didn't happen. This, ladies and gentlemen, is our temperatures graphed against the sunspot cycle. The CO2 correlation with our thermometer record is 22%. That's at the accidental level. The correlation with the sunspots is 79%. Do you actually believe that big orange thing in the sky could have something to do with the heating of the Earth? No, we don't. We have the consensus to tell us better than that. All right, let's follow this sunspot thing through a little more. We won't get into the cosmic rays of the solar wind, although I do it in the book. But sunspots began to predict a global cooling in the year 2000, and usually there's a 10-year lag. And this one arrived in 2007, and the temperatures began to decline quite sharply until the El Nino hit the Pacific. Since then, we've been through an El Nino. We're now in a La Nina. The temperatures have actually bottomed out, I think, and are starting back up. The question is what will happen in the years just ahead. On that score, let me point out that NASA satellites confirmed in 2008 that the Pacific Ocean had entered its cool phase. And if you look at our thermometer record, you'll see that it moves up and down regularly in 30-year cycles. It's a 60-year cycle. And right now, both the Pacific Ocean and the sunspots are saying cooling trend. And based on history, that cooling trend is likely to last at least another 25 years. You will not have Al Gore on your TV set during that period. Here is the latest sea surface temperature data. As you can see, we had all those ups and downs, and we're about to have a few more. But that cooling trend after 2007 merits your close attention. We won't lose species. We won't lose species because any species that couldn't handle a 4 degrees Celsius temperature shift fairly abruptly is long gone. Anything of that sort disappeared at least 1 million years ago because these 1,500-year cycles always shift abruptly. You usually get half of the total warming in the first few decades. In addition to that, the vegetation is cold limited but not heat limited. So the trees you've got aren't going to die just because it gets warmer. It's only after there's a forest fire or a pest infestation that the new trees would have a chance to intrude. So the southern trees will have to withstand replacements. Up in my home territory in Ontario, beech trees dominated the warmest periods, Oaks dominated the cooler, and pine trees dominated the really cold periods. Excuse me, I need a cough drop here. I do not understand why they quit making those cough drops with a little paper twist.
Leave my pocket there.
Okay, we're good to go. Overreach. Let's talk about overreach. James Hansen went before the U.S. Senate Committee in 1988 and testified that the world was going to just get enormously warmer rapidly. If he'd been right, we would already be 0.6 of a degree warmer than we are. Hasn't happened. EPA is now trying to impose carbon limits. They'd have farmers and ranchers pay a lot more for their nitrogen, their feed, than the carbon emissions from their livestock. There is no science to support this. They took the terribly skewed report of the Intergovernmental Panel on Climate Change and just endorsed it wholesale. Understand that those models were set up without anybody telling the computer about the little ice age or the medieval warming or the dark ages or the Roman warming. Those computers don't know about this cycle because our researchers, so-called researchers, didn't tell them. Let's think about what would happen if these effective carbon taxes went through. And 10 years out, we had eliminated half of the nitrogen in the farming system. And world food prices had gone up fourfold and your kids were hungry. Would we let the government take the rest of the nitrogen? Would we let the government take the rest of the nitrogen? I think this is what's likely to happen in the 21st century. A small further warming, about 0.5 degrees Celsius. Minnesota will welcome that. I'm not sure whether you guys need any more or not, but we will have to take what comes. The Sahara is already getting wetter and greener, and we are likely to see more drought, as I say, as the tropic rain belts move north. Both California and my mid-Atlantic region had century-long droughts during the medieval warming. So that sort of thing could happen again. We will have to adapt. We will have to adapt. In the primitive days, Stone Age man just walked. Wherever it was, he was, and it got too dry, he walked. Now we have to adapt. We can do it. Most of the megadroughts occurred during the little ice ages. They hit the Roman Empire in 586 AD. That's the real reason the Roman Empire fell. The Mayan culture was destroyed in the 800s, in the 9th century. China has been racked with wars and famine 6 times in the last 4,000 years. But it's also true we had a huge mega drought between 1200 and 1300 that hit everything from New Mexico to Chicago with massive 60 years of drought in that period. It killed off the Anasazi of New Mexico and dispersed the Mississippi culture in the Mississippi Valley. Those mega droughts occurred when a cooling Pacific phase collided with a warming Atlantic phase. We're in a Pacific cooling phase now, so watch carefully. Dealing with the EPA, I wrote some years ago that only a fool would impose greenhouse emission limits during a recession when the temperatures aren't rising. Mr. Obama has not chosen to take my advice, as you can see. The new House membership is trying to defund the EPA by denying money for CO2 enforcement. We'll have to see how that plays out. We'll have to see how the lawsuits play out, but understand that delay is your friend. If the temperatures really are going to trend downward, delay is your salvation. As I say, the British Minister of Transport last January said, after 3 dire winters in a row, while the British Met Office was predicting warmer weather, it's time to think about a step change in the climate. Much like the one we had in 1940, could be. All right, the future and how you see it. The Greens are going to lose a lot of their power as global warming falls by the wayside. The media are going to lose a lot of their power at the same time for the same reasons. Ladies and gentlemen, we've been trying to get newspapers and TV stations to tell our story. They're part of the scare industry. It's hopeless to expect them to do our work for us. We've got the new Farmers and Ranchers Alliance. Excuse me for the question mark. I didn't mean I'll have to take that up. We have something called the Keystone Alliance that's working to identify the real sustainability in our farming system. And that's better. But we're still not talking to consumers. And I know you don't really want to. You'd rather go out and ranch. But at the moment, the only information the consumers get is from Greenpeace and the Sierra Club. I'm recommending a radical strategy. And worst of all, it involves spending money. The American Plastics Council, about 10 years ago, defanged Greenpeace on banning plastic with 3 years of TV ads. I don't think you need TV ads. I think you've got in consumer magazines an ideal medium in which to reach the people you really need to reach. And they're not all that expensive. I can tell you that the United Soybean Board is talking right now about the possibility and desirability of using some checkoff bounties on this kind of a project. But if we talk to consumers about saving 6.5 million square miles of wildlife habitat, if we talk about confinement feeding being good for the planet, both in terms of animal health and comfort, in terms of waste disposal. I mean, it's the outdoor hogs where the waste goes into the nearest stream. And we can talk about little kids not going blind because of vitamin A in their rice due to biotechnology. There are lots of stories we could tell the consumers in pinpoint ads, and we haven't done it. And believe me, Oprah Winfrey is not going to come to your ranch with her crew and pat you on the head in front of the camera. It's your challenge. The global warming book is called Unstoppable Global Warming Every 1,500 Years. Amazon, all the other booksellers have sold 200,000 copies. I brought 5 with me if somebody, I'll be over on the other side of the room here after I get off the stage.